Altering the facts turns our children into idiots. They claim it's for our safety. I'll tell you what it really is. Removing information that empowers all the citizens. The truth doesn't damage points of view that are legitimate. They're trying to change amen to amen. And
all right. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another fantastic episode of Dion's Daily Dose. I am here today with James Sceniak. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. He can correct me when we get him on. But really cool guy. Normally, you guys know, those of you who have watched the show, I try to get everybody on. I've offered multiple times to have Democrats on. As of this time, I've had one, I think, take me up on that. But free speech crosses party lines. It doesn't matter what someone's declared party is. They are more than welcome to come on the show. I love a good conversation. Mr. Sceniak is one of several Libertarians running this year. For this one, we have United States Senate, which I think is going to be a very, very interesting race. Anyway, we'll get more into that. And as always, I'm going to bring him on. He can wave to you, and then the screen will be his for 2 minutes. I will send him a little message via our little private chat and let him know when his time's almost up, and then I'll pop back on. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Mr. James Sceniak, Libertarian candidate for United States Senate.
Hey, welcome. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate coming on the show. I just wanted to take this moment to introduce myself. My name is James Sceniak, and I'm your Libertarian U.S. Senate candidate. I'm a behavior therapist, so I work with kids with autism, and we do a lot of different skills. We do behavior skills, problem behavior reduction. We do gross and fine motor skills, and it's a really rewarding career field. And I'm looking forward to using the skills that we use within that field. So it's a very incremental approach, and I want to take the libertarian philosophy and use that incremental approach to Washington, D.C. So there's 3 different platforms I'm running on for the U.S. Senate race. The first one being vet care. And I believe that currently the VA system has failed our vets. I have a plan in place that we can do a lot better for their health. The fiscal sanity in Washington, D.C. is absolutely insane right now. And Todd Young is one of the worst spenders in Washington, D.C., and that's with an R on his name. So we're going to look at how we can bring fiscal sanity back. And I have a few ideas that will help. The Cato 6.2 plan is one of those. And then my last platform that I'm running on is medical freedom. And the idea is that politicians should not act as our physicians. From a national standpoint, they can't make an individual medical decision for you. So I think these are great. It's a great opportunity this year to have an alternative in Washington, someone who can work across the aisle, work with Democrats and Republicans on these issues, but also advocate for your freedom and advocate for bringing public service back to Washington. So I definitely thank you for listening in tonight. I appreciate any comments or questions that come through. My campaign's always looking for feedback and want to hear from you guys because we want to bring back public service to politicians.
Awesome. So there's a lot that I'd like to talk to you about tonight. One of the things, let me fix my camera here. So one of those is, I don't know if the viewers are aware, some of them may be, but Mr. Sceniak, right? Let me make sure I say that right. It's
Sceniak.
Okay. Mr. Sceniak adopted a portion of highway and went out and cleaned it up. This is the first time I've seen personally any candidate do this. Myself included, I'm a lazy bastard. I sit here and, no, I'm not lazy, but I do the normal candidate stuff. But this was actually something pretty incredible, in my opinion. You adopted a section of highway. Is that interstate or where is that? Tell us.
Well, so actually it was the Porter County Libertarians. So they did it as a county, and then I just helped them this year clean it up. So the Porter County Libertarians adopted it, and it's part of our philosophy of taking care of our communities. So it was really important to us to do that.
Okay, awesome. So a lot of people may or may not know about your job that you do. My wife actually was reading over your information. She's a Medicaid waiver case manager. So she immediately recognized what you do. And, you guys don't interact because you're in a different area, but she's like, where's he from? I'm looking him up because I want to see if I worked with him before. So she has a special understanding of what you do. And for those of you out there who don't know, it's a heck of a job he does. He works with the developmentally disabled, just like Liz, those longtime viewers. She's explained it's a slightly different job, but it's in the same field. And it's, while being greatly rewarding, it's a difficult job, right?
Definitely. It has a lot of challenges, and therefore you'll see a high turnover rate in the field. There's a lot of reasons. It's emotionally demanding. It's physically demanding. We have to deal with physical behaviors. So a lot of people coming into the field don't even always realize, working daily with the autism spectrum, how actually dangerous it is to your physical being if you're not prepared or ready for the safety aspects of the job. So there's a lot of turnover. It's difficult, but what gets me through is the rewards. And you see so many rewards in this field. I witnessed my current client running track, and he wasn't even able to push a breakfast cart in the morning. So you see those improvements from the beginning of September to now. And it's just incredible to watch. And I really love that part of the job. And that's why I keep doing it every day.
That's phenomenal. That's awesome. And to see something like that, like a real benefit, a real change in that period of time, has to be incredibly rewarding. So we're going to start with what I call rapid fire questions. These are non-political in nature for the most part. They're just regular get to know you questions. They're important to me. So first of all, the one that's most important to me, how do you like your steak cooked?
Medium rare.
Thank you. Oh my goodness. It boggles my mind the number of people out there who destroy steak.
You can't. Yeah, I mean, I've had people try to put steaks back on the grill, and I'm like, you're doing it wrong. And
right. You're doing it wrong. Stop it. Cats or dogs?
So I'm an animal person. That being said, I've had both. I think dogs I've had a little bit easier experience with. But yeah, I'm definitely an animal person.
Okay. All right, good. As you can tell, behind me, I don't know if you can see him, but that is Grizzly. He decided to join us today. So, okay. So let me ask you this. What is your favorite restaurant in your area?
I really like Ale Emporium. It's something I found down in Indy, and it's, to me, one of the best wings you'll find in Indy. They have a Hermanaki wing, and it's absolutely amazing. It's one of my favorite go-tos. So, okay. Being a huge wing fan, it definitely was a good find down here.
Nice. Okay. So you live around Indianapolis then?
I do. I live in Greenwood, just south of Indianapolis.
Okay. All right. What's your favorite sport?
So to watch, probably football. Play, probably basketball.
So I assume being so close to Indy, you're a Colts fan then?
I am. I love going to the games when I can, and I definitely watch them weekly. So it's a fun. The Colts are a fun team to watch. Hopefully this year we'll see some, at least playoffs, right? So
yeah, right. Okay. So when you were a kid, what did you really want to be when you grew up? What's the first thing you remember being like, I really want to do that?
So I come from a very conservative and religious family. And the first, when I was 4, I wanted to become a pastor, and I don't know specifically why, but from 4 on, I was convinced for a long time I was going to be a pastor.
Okay. All right. Interesting. You are like I want to say like third Libertarian candidate I've had on that comes from a very conservative religious background. Bless you. It's my cat. So that's interesting to me because generally that type of background leads to Republican party affiliation, I'd say. So that's interesting. What is your favorite movie?
All-time favorite, it's the trilogy, but the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I nice. Beautifully done, and loved the books. Okay. So it was a good series.
Nice. Okay. What is now normally this is like district related, but a lot of people may or may not know senators run for the entire state. It's not broken down into different districts. Todd Young and Mike Braun are the current senators for the state of Indiana, and each of them represent the entire state. So normally I would ask, what's the favorite thing about your district? But what's your favorite thing about Indiana?
The people.
Yeah, right. I'm right there with you.
I just love the Hoosier hospitality. I heard it called that from people who have come here. Where I grew up, the community, there's Amish, there's Mennonites, very diverse group of communities in that area. So that was really neat to see. Now that I'm living in Greenwood, it's again a very unique, but Hoosier. It's really the people that make Indiana, and that's what I love about Indiana.
I agree. I'm actually from Louisiana originally, and I lived in Mobile, Alabama for a while. So you hear about Southern hospitality, but my personal experience, the people up here are just generally friendlier than even the deep South. So I found that very interesting. It's one of the reasons why I chose to live here. But let's get into the real ones, right? The real question. So hope I have the right one. Nope, that's the wrong one. Hold on. I have a list. So it's not bad though. So you're a behaviorist. Very, very awesome career. First of all, what made you decide to want to do this?
Well, so from the going back to the pastor, I realized that wasn't for me, but I realized within that goal was I need to help people. So I went to school for human services, which is basically a social work degree. I got my BS in that. And with it, at the time, the economy had crashed and I couldn't even find a minimum wage paying job at the moment in the field. So I took factory jobs. I lived in Elkhart, so some of those were RV jobs. And I was just kind of waiting to find the right job. And so finally I got a point where I was like, I got this degree, I need to use it. And some life changes happened. So I applied to a bunch of different roles that could be applied to my degree. And one of the first jobs that called me was a behavior center down here. And they showed me on the job what it was. They did the on-site interview. And I just fell in love with it immediately when I saw what they were doing and how the kids were interacting.
Okay.
And so they were the first job to interview me. I did take other interviews, but they were the first one to give me an offer. And I ended up taking it because it was that awesome to me, that what they were doing every day. So
yeah, awesome. Okay, so then how did you transition from doing that and loving that to wanting to run for United States Senate?
Several things. I've always been interested in politics.
Okay.
And it's kind of more of a side gig. I follow it. I have helped on campaigns before, but I had taken a break for a while. And so I really saw that how the two sides were really divided at the moment. And I thought that now, is a time we need to make change and progress and bring people together over tabletop issues that we can talk about. And I don't believe the nation is as divided as we believe it is. I believe most people I can sit down with at a table and we can find something in common.
Right. I agree with you there.
So I'm still doing behavior therapy. That's still my full-time job. But the reason I decided to run was to bring people together and just work for the middle Hoosiers who want fiscal sanity, but they also want to take care of their neighbors. And it went from exploring it to I can do this. I want to represent the Libertarian Party, and I believe that I'm the best voice right now to do that. And I decided to take a run for it, and I ended up winning the convention this year. So it was an exciting journey for sure.
Yeah, congratulations. So let me ask you this: the current incumbent Todd Young has, for lack of a better term, he's made some Republicans angry with some of the choices that he's made. Not all. There are those that are going to vote R no matter what, right? I'm a Republican candidate for office. I'm not going to bash Todd Young, but I am going to say that he's made some decisions that many Republicans disagree with. So the very likely person, or not likely, the definitive person that he's going to face is Mayor McDermott from Hammond, right? He made sure that every other possible person was kicked off the ballot. So he is now the Democrat nominee. So it's going to be a three-way race. You're going to have McDermott, who at least in Northwest Indiana is well known. Liked, a whole other story, but he's well known. Todd Young, sitting incumbent. So there's two well-known people you're running against. Why should people choose you?
It's simple. We need to fight for our freedoms and our rights. And with both the Republicans and the Democrats right now, all their solutions involve bigger government and bigger waste. And if we want to be responsible and ready for the next generation and providing them for the same opportunities, we need to have a difference in the Senate. And right now, more government and more intrusion in our personal lives is not that. And the Libertarians are the only party that's fighting for our personal freedoms. Both the Republicans and the Democrats showed through COVID-19 that they would prefer for the government intervention and to step into our rights. So I believe this is the race to show that.
Okay, so do you have let me get rid of this one. I got the wrong question thing up. Sorry. Do you have any experience in government currently?
No, this will be the first time on the ballot. Other than
is that good or bad?
I think good. I think that if we want to change in Washington, D.C., we got to look for people who want to best represent who we are. And the more I notice that politicians are in the government, they start serving only the other politicians that are in government. And many of them start out really well and with good intentions, but it's just that establishment system that's not working for Hoosiers. So coming from the outside, I believe is actually a positive. And with my perspective from the social work side, I can understand the humanitarian side of running and coming from a very conservative, fiscally responsible family, I can understand economics. So I think having an outside voice is a very positive thing.
Okay. All right. So prior to the 2020 election, I would have said that a Libertarian would struggle to pull enough votes to win. But I'm going to say this, after Rainwater's performance, especially in Indiana, I think it's very possible. So I think anyone should, personally, I love to become educated about candidates, regardless of which side of the political divide they're on. But I think it's a reality that we're going to see more and more people turning to third parties or even independents. But what do you think qualifies you above the other candidates, one of which has experience in the Senate, one of which has experience running a city?
So what qualifies me is representing the people. And when we look at what a Senate role is, it's about representing our constituents. I don't believe Young does that. I don't believe that he is fiscally sane with our money and representing the Hoosier dollar. So I definitely think that if you look at his failed policies, he's no more qualified than anybody else on the ballot ticket. Yeah. And then if same thing with the Democrat, he's in a city that doesn't allow free speech and try to push back on that. So I'm the only candidate who's pro free speech, and the economy is very important to me. And I think we could pull both sides together and show that there's a third voice that represents Hoosiers, and it's the best option on their ballot.
Yeah. So Cassie would like everybody to know that Mayor McDermott threatened legal action for someone who was flying a flag that he didn't like. I actually followed that case, covered it on the show. It said I think F Joe Biden on the flag. But, what's interesting is the Supreme Court actually ruled that it is our protected right of free speech to use vulgar language. It's actually one of the things that are specifically covered. There was a case about that. I understand why the gentleman decided to just cave in and get rid of the flag, but I wholeheartedly agree with you as far as McDermott goes. This guy is not going to fight for our rights. One of the things that concerns me, let me ask you if it does you, is he did a commercial where he's running for United States Senate. I personally am one of the few Republicans endorsed in the 2020 election by Indiana Normal. I'm all for legalization, period. Let's get it done. I believe that McDermott did this video to cater and he actually tests his employees and has fired some for failing their drug tests. So do you worry about that as far as the cannabis community and getting behind McDermott because he had the money to make this ad, or do you think that they'll be not smart enough, but aware enough to recognize what he's doing?
From the Democrat side, I hope that they realize it's the same move Biden made when Biden ran on cannabis, and immediately when he got in the White House, fired I don't know how many staff for cannabis. Mm-hmm. He's done the exact same thing. And I understand why it's from the normal community, why it's exciting to see him smoke a blunt on a commercial.
Right.
It takes a stand, but at the same time, I don't think the Democrats have moved on that issue, and I don't see that changing. I don't see it passing the Senate, even though Democrats have more bodies in the Senate right now. So we'll see. Maybe I'm proven wrong, but
I mean, hopefully, I'd love to see it go through, but the reality is they're already talking about, it's not going to make it. Big surprise there. We see it over and over. They put these bills through. It'll make it past the House, and then the Senate will stop it. They, like you said, they have the bodies. They have the numbers to get it through. It's a 50-50, and then the vice president can be the tiebreaker. But I'll be surprised if it does make it.
Exactly.
So let's say you do win. Okay, you election night. It's a clear win. You're going through. So we know how committees work. It's the parties that control the committees, and they're the ones who get the people onto the committees.
Right.
Do you think you'll be able to get anything done?
It's a good question. It's one I've been asked. Absolutely. As far as getting on a committee, that kind of is new in politics. So Libertarian's never been in the Senate. Mm-hmm. So we'll see how the committees go as far as that works. But the reason I think we can get things done is, for example, my vet care program. My vet care program is moving unilateral money from the VA, so it doesn't increase taxes, but it still gives veterans what I call a veteran personal care account. So moving that money unilaterally, we're going to save taxpayers and give better care to our veterans. But with this issue, I believe it's something that the Democrats and the Republicans can get on board with. So when we work together, we can work on these issues that we can come to the middle for. And in addition to that, I think it also gives me more power to compromise with the other parties when they want more taxes. I can have a voice and say, let's reduce those if you want this bill to pass with my vote. And I believe it just gives more negotiating power in the middle.
Okay. All right. I love to see, let me just, before we kind of go on, regardless of where you sit on the political spectrum, and I say the same to a Democrat, thank you for stepping up and putting your name on the ballot. Far too few of us do that. I would love to see, honestly, I'd love to see mega packed primaries with people, 30, 40 candidates, because it'll force people, I think, to learn about these candidates. In many, many cases, we see people that just vote for name recognition or just, I remember them, click. I'd love to see more and more people put their names on the ballot because I'd like us all to have more choices.
For sure. I think that's how we represent the people. And even when you were talking about the primaries, both sides kicked off everybody on their ballot. And I think that screams corruption and it doesn't want the people's voice. I believe if they truly wanted to represent the people, you'd see more people come up on the primaries. But it's establishment politics.
Right. I don't disagree with you there. We had our own set of challenges that happened up and down the ballot on the Republican side, Democrat side. I urge people, just kind of a side note here. It's related though. I urge people to pull up the actual hearings that they held in Indianapolis with the Election Commission, where they had these people that had challenged primary ballot access. Watch it because it's really quite telling some of the reasons that people wanted that various parties wanted people off the ballot. For example, there was a Democrat that was pro-life, and the Democrat chairwoman wanted him kicked off the ballot because he was pro-life. these things are very, very frustrating to me as both a voter and someone running. Is that what we're reduced to? Really?
So my thought on it is the Republicans and Democrats have already chosen your vote. They didn't give you a choice. So talk about a wasted vote. It's a chosen vote for you. They think they can make that choice. So look at the primaries. Look how corrupt that is. I will be the only one on the ballot with a contested, for me, it's convention, but essentially a primary.
Yeah.
And that shows that the Libertarians are principled and we're ready for different candidates with different ideas to come forth. We actually have pro-life and pro-choice candidates in the Libertarian Party. And based on just that issue, we're not going to immediately kick them off one way or the other. So I do believe that's where we're at with the two-party system, and that's why it's failing voters.
Okay. All right. I think here's the thing. I do believe that there is definitely an argument to be made for that. And I would be interested in any ideas people have to make the system more fair. Again, I'm a Republican candidate for office. I'm not saying that everything's right, though, because we know it's not. There are many things I think that could be tweaked, that could be fixed. One of the things that I've heard people say over and over is, where's Paul at? There he is. RCV, ranked choice voting. That's something, interestingly enough, that both parties use in their primary, but won't allow it. I say both. Republican and Democrat, you guys, I think, do a different sort of deal for your primary, right?
It is similar to ranked choice voting, but there's some different ways to do it. But yes,
not primary. I misspoke. For their convention, where the Republican Party chooses their Secretary of State, stuff like that. Ranked choice voting is used. So why is it okay for them for the convention, but not okay for the ballot box?
Because it doesn't work in their favor in the general election. So it works in their favor for when they're running their own conventions in their own side. But that's the beautiful thing about ranked choice voting is it actually represents people's voices more. So let's say there's two candidates you really like on the ballot and one you absolutely don't. So you rank them, and the one that you don't give them your vote at all. But if your first guy can't win, then your second vote actually does still get counted. So it gives you more voice in your vote. So why we're not promoting that, I don't know. And it only makes sense if you want to represent people to promote ranked choice voting.
Yeah, I agree. So Cassie says, better ballot Indiana. Follow them. Also looking for a Republican candidate to speak on it. I'll check it out. I am always open to more what's the term I'm looking for? A more accurate representation of what the people want. And I popped it on the screen real quick, but I agree with Danny here. He said there's a big difference between pandering and principles. Libertarian have been pro-cannabis for 50 years. You're not wrong, man. I mean, it's absolutely right. So what do you think is the biggest challenge facing the United States today? The number one thing?
Well, it goes back to an earlier remark about how divided we've become. And I think the greatest challenge is bringing people together for the greater good and having our voices represented in the middle and making sure that people are truly represented by their politicians. So with the media and how they want to portray a lot of what's happening in Washington, it only furthers that divide. So really, I want to bring back what politics should be, and that should be about giving you proper voice and representation, giving you more freedom and the government less control. And these are real issues that are happening currently, and I think we need a voice that represents the ones that can come together at the table and make a difference.
Okay, good answer. Good answer. What do you think the number one challenge the world faces?
We see it all over the war, and it's not just Ukraine and Russia.
Yeah.
Ethiopia, my friend had just called me about her parents trapped in Ethiopia right now. So,
oh, wow.
So conflict is all over the world, and it's a huge issue, right? Young soldiers are fighting and on both sides and dying. And what can we do about that on a global world aspect? and what is the United States role in that? So those are all great questions and things that we can look at.
Yeah. Do you think that the United States should be the world's police force?
No. So that's a very libertarian philosophy. And
Okay.
I believe something that, like the Iraq War, we were there 20 years. That's absolutely ridiculous. Soldiers come back from war, and you can tell the trauma and the from a mental health perspective, the issues that they face after war. And it's not our role to be a world police.
Okay. All right. I agree with you there. I think we've seen over and over that the people that benefit most from it are people that will never be involved in it. They're never going to be on the ground. They're never going to, send their sons and daughters off to fight in these wars. They're just going to collect the profits from it. And that's something that we absolutely need to change. Speaking of profiting from it, do you think that members of House and Senate should be banned from owning stocks?
So we got to look at accountability, and I think the answer is yes right now.
Okay.
I give the example that I live with someone who works for the Hoosier Lottery, and not only can he not buy a ticket, but anybody in the household, even though I'm not related to him or anything, anybody in the household can't buy a ticket and win. So
interesting.
Yeah. So in the free market, we already have regulations for different platforms. Same thing with athletes; they can't gamble on sports.
Right. We've seen,
Why are politicians
before? Yeah.
Who legislate policy that affect these businesses? Why are they able to trade on the free market? And I believe their disclosure is only at this point 90 days. So a lot can happen in 90 days from the time they disclose it to buying and selling. So
absolutely. Yeah.
So I mean, clearly not working.
Yeah. We have to figure something else out. I agree with you. I don't know. I don't know what the solution is. But the fact that even the Hoosier Lottery has figured out a system to prevent cheating, such as it is, an employee can't purchase, even someone in the same household can't purchase. So why is it so difficult for us to be able to figure out a solution that would keep our politicians from enriching themselves with legislation for these companies, right? I mean, insider trading is a reality.
Yeah, and the same laws don't apply to them that apply to us. If we got caught doing that exact same thing, there'd be fines and criminal charges. So
yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's get a little more fine-tuned, I'd say. So let's assume that you were already in the Senate when Ketanji Brown's nomination came up. Would you have voted to confirm her as a member of the Supreme Court or not?
So that's a great question. When I'm specifically looking for judges, I look for ones that want to follow the Constitution. And I would have a series of questions and how they voted. I wasn't privy to all that information for Brown. From the Democrats, I honestly don't know if we were going to get a better quote unquote judge as far just because she was a public defender. And the one thing I haven't looked fully at her record, but public defenders are rarely ever appointed to the Supreme Court. And so the idea that she has defended the public from the government itself would give me some encouragement. But overall, I don't think she follows enough of the Constitution, her policies, that would give me her vote.
Okay. All right. Not a bad question. I will say that you did a much better job of answering that than some people that I've spoken to in the past. So good job. Let me ask you this, though. So the Senate has kind of dropped the ball when it comes to treaties lately. My friend sent me an article about it, and they've kind of been a very hands-off approach, which is sad because it's allowed the executive branch to kind of take over as far as treaties go. But treaty power is a coordinated effort between the executive branch and the Senate or legislative branch. The president may form and negotiate, but the treaty itself must be advised and consented to by a 2/3 vote in the Senate. Only after the Senate approves the treaty can the president actually ratify it. So my question to you is, the UN Small Arms Treaty, would you vote to affirm that? We can look it up. I don't know all these myself, so I don't mind taking a minute to pop them up and look.
Yeah, if you want to pop it up and look, I always hate to comment on something I haven't fully read or thought through. As far as I haven't read the whole treaty or anything, but I do have general opinions about NATO and how we deal with that.
By all means, I'd love to hear them while I'm getting this on the screen. So, first of all, I'm going to say this. Thank you. Seriously, thank you for telling us, instead of being, oh, I like it or I don't like it, admitting that, hey, I don't know everything. In my opinion, that's one of the first steps to someone actually representing the people, is admitting when you don't know something.
So that's part of what I believe politicians should have and be a part of. They themselves don't know everything. They're one brain. And I keep promoting that it takes team. And I'm always going to rely on my team. I'm going to rely on research. And obviously, I'll make whatever final decision from my team. But there's many professionals out there that know more than myself. So I think to be naive and say that I can have an answer for every single issue is something that I'm just not going to do.
Well, yeah. I mean, a lot of people aren't aware of this, but House and Senate have over $1 million a year each, by the way, for their staff. These people are the ones who actually read all these bills. They're the ones who come to their senator or their House representative and tell them, hey, this is what we should do. This is what it says. Hopefully these people have good staff members and they're being honest. Otherwise, who knows? I don't know. There's a lot to this. There's a lot more to this than I thought it was. I thought I could do like a quick. Let's go back. Hopefully we can get like a quick. All right. So let's see what this says. Anyway, while we're looking at that, I don't know, it's being kind of slow, but, okay. So this one I do know. What about the Open Sky Treaty? Do you know which one that is? That's the one. That's okay. That's the one with Russia where we had permission to fly over them and they had permission to fly over us, that, Trump kind of let go. It didn't get voted on. It didn't get re-established. What do you think about that?
So I did look into that a little bit. I think, that specific treaty with Russia, right now with Ukraine, everything's up in the air. So I'm not sure how that would look for a long-term treaty, but I definitely want to look at what's going on in Ukraine before I have any conversation about flight over the U.S.
Okay, makes sense. Okay, so basically here, the content right here. Let me zoom in a little more. Okay, the UN office, where'd it go? The UN Office for Disarmament Affairs claimed the treaty would not interfere with domestic arms commerce or the right to bear arms in its member states, ban the export of any type of weapon, harm the legitimate right to self-defense, or undermine national arms regulation standards already in place. But the arms treaty obligates member states to monitor arms exports and ensure that weapons don't cross existing arms embargoes or end up being used for human rights abuses, including terrorism. Member states, with the assistance of the UN, will put into place enforceable, standardized arms import and export regulations, much like those that already exist in the U.S., and be expected to track the destination of exports to ensure they don't end up in the wrong hands. Ideally, that means limiting the inflow of deadly weapons into places such as Syria. Advocates of the treaty say it only pertains to international arms trade and would have no effect on current domestic laws. These advocates point to the UN General Assembly's resolution starting the process. Resolution explicitly states it is the exclusive right of states to regulate internal transfers of arms, blah, 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 blah. Opposition to the ATT can be broken down into state opposition and civil society opposition. Over 30 states have objected to various parts of it during negotiations, the majority of which held strong concerns about the implications for national sovereignty. It goes on, but essentially they're concerned about. They say the treaty is an attempt to circumvent the Second Amendment and similar guarantees in state constitutions in order to impose domestic gun regulations.
Yeah, so that's what I was about to say right before you read that last part. I can already tell you where I stand on this because I'm very pro 2A. I pro constitutional carry. I think
Okay.
that guns are a good form of protection, not just against someone robbing us, but also against a tyranny. And that's why it was designated as the Second Amendment, and our forefathers had a very real experience with that. So any treaty, especially in the world that would could even come into question the rights of American citizens in the 2A, I think needs to be relooked at, and definitely I would not be in favor of.
Okay, awesome. I'm glad you said that. That was kind of the next question. Would you be open to legislation that essentially made federal the right to constitutionally carry?
So federally, I mean, basically the idea would be is to just say the 2A stands, and I'm all for that. I think that it's already written there. We just need to fight the unjust laws, and there's many of them. Red flag laws, I'm not a supporter of.
Okay.
So we can talk about all those, but yeah, we definitely have to fight back for our rights, and I believe it's already there in the Constitution.
Okay.
We just need to go back to that.
Right. We just need to make sure that the government stops infringing on the rights that are already protected. Agreed?
Correct.
Okay. So, two U.S. Democratic senators recently said there is very little oversight going on over the NSA right now. What are your thoughts on the NSA, and would you do anything about having more oversight over the NSA?
Well, I'm not a fan of the NSA.
Right.
Like most agencies, I think it's mostly waste and infringes on our rights again. But until we can completely eliminate it, we definitely need more oversight and more accountability. And they're right. I mean, that doesn't stop with just the NSA, but that is essentially what needs to happen. And as a senator, you appoint these positions. So I'd be very careful of who I'm appointing to any of these positions.
Okay. All right. Very good. I'm happy to hear that you would be very cautious with these nominees and passing them along because they wield so much power. People don't realize how much the heads of these agencies can accomplish, what they can get.
They hold too much power, in my
opinion.
opinion.
Absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree. It's a lot of people aren't aware of exactly what they can do and how they can circumvent the laws. Some of it is, for example, Trump, the whole spying on him thing, I can't remember the name of it right now, but all these warrants that they had that was in a secret courtroom that people didn't know about. These happen every day. And if that can happen against a sitting United States president, what can they do to you?
Right. And that's the corruption in our government. I mean, it's gotten so bad that the corrupt have called out corruption. And it's absolutely ridiculous that the amount they can spy on individual citizens that are doing nothing wrong. And the Patriot Act is one of those acts. Todd Young voted for it, and it's something that should not be renewed. The Patriot Act is an infringement on your rights, and you need to know that. The fact that they give you absolutely no privacy for any little concern they have, and you don't even have to see the warrants that they have. It's ridiculous where we're at, and someone needs to call them out, and a senator should be that one, but Young refuses to be the one to stand up for your rights, especially on issues like the Patriot Act.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you, they recently did basically a poll where they asked all the sitting congressmen and senators where they sit on the Patriot Act and if they would renew it. There was an actual vote, but before that, they did the polling, right? Where they call each other, can I count on your vote kind of thing, right? And it was absolutely shocking and disgusting to me how many sitting congressmen and senators still support the infringement of rights that is the so-called Patriot Act.
Exactly. And Todd Young is one of those. Absolutely ridiculous. He's not representing you, the Hoosiers. Talk about a wasted vote. He's not even a Republican. He doesn't follow the Republican principles.
You're not wrong. I mean, look, I'm not going to, like I said before, I'm not going to bash him, but I'm certainly not going to tell you you're wrong when you're not. I mean, it's the reality is the reality, and like I said, the actions that he's taken, the votes that he's made. Everyone should be aware, even Republicans, even if you're thinking about just pulling an R ballot in the general and voting straight ticket. First of all, never vote straight ticket.
No.
Just don't. Take a minute. It takes like a minute to fill out your ballot, ladies and gentlemen. Please just take a second to act, because other reasons aside, local offices are not covered under a straight ticket vote. They don't, because you have multiple people you have to choose for things like county councils and stuff like that. So you're either not voting or you're voting incorrectly, in my opinion. So, do you support a full audit of the Federal Reserve?
I do. It's again one of those things about accountability in Washington and the rate of inflation right now and how we're dealing with that. It definitely needs an audit, and it's a big issue. And this year, Hoosiers should see how much of an issue it is, because it's personally affecting their lives.
Right. I agree. Okay. I'd be all for getting rid of the Federal Reserve personally. I think more and more people are becoming aware of what the Federal Reserve really is. And there's nothing federal or reserve about it. It is an outside bank that controls our currency, and we need to stop it.
Right. And it just prints money, which contributes to inflation.
Right, precisely. And there's debt associated with that money. Like it was fascinating to me when I first started learning about what it was really about and how it was set up. And, I urge everyone, learn about the Federal Reserve, what they really are. It's a central bank. It's not ours.
Research on that issue.
Yeah. Okay. So do you support, or did you support the Iran nuclear deal?
It's been a while since I've looked into that. I think that I would say I wouldn't support it. I don't think it favored us, but again, it's been a little bit since I looked at that issue. But yeah, I remember distinctively thinking that it didn't represent us well.
Okay. What about what's the name? The trade agreement, the TTP, or TPP, Trans-Pacific Partnership. Are you familiar with that?
Can you go over that one?
Okay, so the Trans-Pacific Partnership, TPP. Let's see if maybe Wikipedia can give us what is the TPP. All right, so this is. So according to the USTR.gov, is the TPP good? Now, remember, this is a government site, ladies and gentlemen. They're always going to tell you what they did was good, but it helps to ensure that the global economy reflects our interests and values by requiring other countries to play by fair wage, safe workplace, and strong environmental rules that we help set. Here we go. Hold on. Let's get this on here. So there we go. So that is from USTR.gov. I assume that's trade. Let's see here. So Wikipedia has a different, let's see. It was a proposed trade agreement between Australia, Brunei, Canada, Chile, Japan, Malaysia, a whole bunch of places. After Trump withdrew, the agreement could not be ratified as required and did not enter into force. The remaining countries negotiated a new trade agreement called Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, which incorporates most of the provisions of TPP and which entered into force on December 30th, 2018. Let's see here. Essentially, okay, so the original TPP contained measures to lower both non-tariff and tariff barriers to trade, establish an investor-state dispute settlement mechanism, the U.S. International Trade Commission, the Peterson Institute, the World Bank, anything involving the World Bank, I'm immediately suspicious of, And the Office of the Chief Economist at Global Affairs Canada found the final agreement would, if ratified, lead to net positive economic outcomes for all signatories, while an analysis using an alternative methodology by two Tufts University economists found the agreement would adversely affect the signatories. Many observers have argued the trade deal would have served a geopolitical purpose, namely to reduce the signatories' dependence on Chinese trade and bring the signatories closer to the United States. There's a whole bunch, but ultimately Trump was convinced that it was a very bad thing, and I looked into it. I was not impressed with it. I felt like we would lose a lot of our bargaining power. You don't have to answer how you feel about it, because obviously it's kind of deep. There's a lot to it, but I will say it's along the lines of NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement that was in place, but it's much more global than just our little area. And once again, in my opinion, we kind of get shafted.
Well, a lot of these treaties really come back to basic libertarian principle. And most of these, when you look into them, they increase government size, and in this case, world government. And for libertarians, we're always wanting to look at ways to reduce that. So to enter most of these treaties is absolutely something that I would not be adamantly for, because it increases that government size.
Right.
We're talking about the world government. And I think that we can safely say that I'd be very suspicious of anything that looks at increasing the government size.
Right. Whether that's here domestically or internationally, bigger government is very, very rarely, I would say never, good for the average citizen.
Well, I mean, even if we just look at the United States and Washington trying to make decisions for individuals all over from California to, Indiana is very different, and Florida is very different. So you look at all three areas, but they're trying to make one decision that affects a wide range of people and communities and cultures. So to increase government size and even going on to a global aspect, it's just not going to work for your individual rights. And that's something that we really look at as libertarians.
Okay. All right. Let's see here. I got a couple more questions for you. Let's see here. I just had it. It was really okay. So there's a lot of talk about Medicare and Social Security. Medicare for all, first of all. Are you in favor of Medicare for all?
No. I think that we've can look at free market versus government control. And I think the free market has served us better medically overall, if you look at the most advances. So at this point, I would not be for Medicare for all and having more government intervention within medical care.
Do you support universal basic income?
So if we're talking minimal wage, I don't actually have that much of an issue with it right now. I think there's better systems to do it. And instead of taking big jumps like we have in the past, I think, if we're going to have a minimum wage, increase it by 3%. I do believe it gives some protection to employees, but we also have to look at how inflation works with all of that. So I'm not a big fan of these when we as politicians take these huge jumps from whether it be 725 to 15 or whatnot. So
right. So the universal basic income is where Sweden, a couple of foreign countries have tried it. It's basically a set amount every month that every person receives. So like $500 a month comes from the government and is deposited into your account every month. And the claim is that this will raise people from poverty. It will allow people to have a standard of living that is higher than it is now, and it will ensure that kind of everyone's on an equal playing field. What they don't tell you is that the way that this universal income works is through increased taxes.
Right.
So, yeah.
I'm not a fan.
Okay. Yeah. I figured. Yeah. Yeah.
It just doesn't economically work, and it's been proven not to work.
Okay. Let's see here. We got a little time left. So one of the things that has kind of been talked about a lot lately is Social Security is going to run out of money. They keep telling us that Social Security is not going to last much longer. It's going to be out of money by this date, then it's this date, then it's this date. Ultimately, we're going to have to make some really tough decisions when it comes to Social Security, I believe. Do you think that raising the minimum age that you can collect Social Security, or do you think that there are other options available to us?
I do believe there's other options, and I don't know if you've ever heard of the Cato 6.2% plan, but what
No.
it does is it actually allows individuals like my generation and even younger than me to opt out of Social Security with the 6.2%. And with the Cato, I vary the plan a little bit. The Cato directs that money to a retirement fund, but my plan would actually just give it back to the individual to decide how their retirement works. So they have personal freedom within that. But
Okay.
so anyways, they opt out with that 6.2, but then the other 6.2 still fulfills the obligations. Those are currently on the system. And it's a designed system to fade out Social Security, which is not going to be there for me or anybody younger than me. So
Right.
we have to fix it somehow. But I really do like that Cato plan.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'd be interested in hearing some more about that. I'll look into it. How do you spell it? CADO or
CATO, yep. And then it's the
CATO?
CATO, and it's the
Okay.
6.2% plan. They have a lot of
Okay.
policies on their website as well, following a libertarian philosophy.
Speaking of websites and libertarians, I'm gonna show everybody your website because I like it. I think it's actually a really good site. It's very to the point. There's not a lot of flashy stuff, and I really like some of the quotes here. Whoops, wrong one. What's going on here? It's supposed to do. Hold on a second. Why is this? Oh, that's that. There it is. There we go. My apologies, ladies and gentlemen. All right. So look, these are. Excuse me. These are some of the quotes on here, and the first one right here. To be clear, Congress isn't on a budget; it's on a spending spree. Now, did you come up with that yourself, or is that from somebody else?
And it just came out in one of my interviews. And what's great about having a great team is they catch things. And my campaign manager decided to collect quotes for me. And when he heard that one, he wrote it down immediately and sent it to me. And I was like, wow, like I didn't plan that quote, but it worked. So
It's a really good quote, and I wholeheartedly agree. So the next one that I see is politicians are not physicians. Medical decisions should be made by individuals and their personal physicians. So would I be correct then in assuming that you would not be in favor of some sort of mandated healthcare related thing?
absolutely. And we can look that they've already tried to infringe on this right. I'm not against vaccines, but I don't believe that decision should be made by a politician in Washington, D.C. With
Very
any
good.
medication, you look at any pill bottle, you look at anything you do, there's side effects. And that decision, because it could potentially have negative consequences, should only be made between you and your trusted physician. So medical care is a very sensitive topic, and that shouldn't be something politicians interfere with.
So I have a couple of audience questions here, but seriously, ladies and gentlemen, let me. I put the website on this post, but you can learn more about James Sceniak at sceniakforsenate.com, and that's SCENIAKFOR Senate.com. So one of the questions Paul wants to know is, would you support a program for reparations to family members of slaves?
I wouldn't. Again, that would increase taxes, and there's an argument there, but I don't believe that currently we need to raise taxes. We're not being fiscally sane with the taxes we are collecting, and increasing them more is not going to help anybody in the long run, even those who we're giving money to.
Okay. And then Sean asked, how do you feel about means testing Social Security and Medicare? Can you be more specific, Sean? I personally am not sure what means testing is.
I agree. I haven't heard that term yet. So
okay. Let's see. He did say, though, Sean said that Chicago is actually launching a universal basic income program. Not sure.
I don't think I trust anything coming from Chicago.
Right. Thank you. Yeah. So apparently 90, at least according to the headline here, 90,000 Chicagoans apply. Chicago's guaranteed basic income program, 24 hours. 90,000 Chicagoans within 24 hours. That tells you something. Let's see here. He had said something earlier as well. So EFF.org issues TPPS. It will change copyright law. The TPPS is the Trans-Pacific Partnership, I believe, the new one. So he said they added a lot of stuff in it. So you can check that out if you want to learn more about it. Let's see here. Going back through. Cassie says pull a Massey and write a bill that says abolish the NSA effective December 31st, 2022. Okay. Yeah. Speaking of NSA. Yeah. So speaking of the NSA and that kind of related thing, before we catch up with Sean here. So I'm going to give you two names, and I want you to tell me whether they are heroes or villains. Okay.
Uh-huh.
All right. So let me find it. Where did it go? Because I want to make sure okay. Edward Snowden.
Hero. I believe that he showed government corruption, and I understand some people didn't like it, but most of those who didn't like it were the ones that were infringing on other people's rights. So if you're infringing on someone's rights and someone calls you out on it, that you're a hero.
Okay. All right. What about Julian Assange?
I'd have to. I didn't like everything he leaked. I'll disclose that.
Okay.
But I also think that sometimes the truth needs to come out, and there was things that was released that were that did need to come out. So I would have trouble putting him in the hero category, but I would also have trouble putting him in the villain category because I do think there's things that he released that was important to release.
Okay, so you think some of it was really important, some of it maybe was a little harmful to certain people or areas, right?
Safety of current operants, and I never want anybody harmed from a released document like that. So that would be a big issue, but there was important things that came out as well.
So we got some examples of what means testing here is. So Sean said means testing is when those who have money cannot collect Social Security or Medicare, or they get part of the money they put into the system. Danny said if you make over a certain amount, you won't qualify to draw Social Security. So Paul just dropped sounds mighty discriminatory. So here's the thing, right? We all pay into Social Security. I'll let you tell us what you think, but I have my own thoughts about that. Go ahead.
Paying into Social Security, we can invest our money in a much better way. The free market always provides better than the Social Security will. So if we look at the free market options, I could do so much more with my money, and I know I'm not going to get anything from Social Security. So it's a failing program, and part of the reason why we're having an issue right now is we have the oldest current serving Senate ever in U.S. history. And I believe they've lost sight of my generation. I believe they've lost sight of the ones, my nieces coming up. And I'm really concerned for their economic upbringing. So yeah. I believe that currently our Senate just keeps kicking the can with Social Security, but there's so much we could do better. And we could do better with the free market on that issue.
Okay. Yeah, I don't disagree. I think that there are definitely multiple cases that can be made for Social Security to be changed, privatized, some things to be done to it. As Danny said, we're all forced to pay into Social Security. It's a real issue because my entire working life, you see the money come out, but like you said, come, your retirement age, they're already telling us that's not going to be there. For my children, it's definitely not going to be there. So how do we fix it in the time between now and when my children retire? I don't know what the solution is, but we have to do something for sure.
Well, definitely look at that Cato, and you'll have to when you do, let me know what you think of that plan. But I think
Okay.
that is a great plan. So
Sounds good. Well, yeah. Paul pointed out, unless you're a railroad worker, they're exempt for some reason. Railroad is it's a very unique industry. Well, I'll just leave it there. Because there's a lot that I could do a whole deep dive on the railroad industry and how they're connected and all of that. But it's an interesting thing. If anybody wants to look into it, start, look at the connections, the people who built America, the railroad systems, and how they actually wielded more power than the government for a time. It was interesting. And still there are certain rules that are in place regarding railroads and power plants and stuff like that. It's fascinating. Anyway, thank you very much for coming on. I'll give you a minute. Let people know where they can learn more about you. I linked your website, but anywhere else that people can learn more about you or ask you questions.
Well, thank you for having me on again. And I want to appreciate the viewers that came in and tuned in today. These kind of conversations is how we make change in Washington, D.C. Over tabletop, two-way conversations. Mm-hmm. It's time that we have those conversations, even the hard ones, whether it's Social Security or whether it's what we do on an international level with our treaties. So those are important conversations, but we can make a change in Washington, D.C. We can bring a fresh, modern approach. And I believe I have the voice that best represents you. I believe that I'm going to bring back public service to Washington, D.C. And I really think that, we need to look at our vote and the importance of it. And a truly wasted vote is for someone who doesn't represent your values. And I believe that as we look, you will find that I represent Hoosier values on economic issues, on your pro-freedoms, on veteran issues. So thank you for looking at my platform. You can find more information at my website, www.sceniak4senate.com. And my campaign is funded by the people for the people because I don't take corrupt money. And I believe that's how politics should work. So you can also donate there or find other ways to help my campaign if any of these freedom issues interest you. Thanks again for having me on, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. Good night. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was James Sceniak, Libertarian candidate for United States Senate. So I anticipate there is going to be a huge, and we've heard before, red wave. In 2020, everything other than the president, and you know what I'm saying, there was a huge red wave. Is it going to be that way in 2022? I believe so. What I'm wondering is how these third-party candidates are going to do. A lot of them have some really good ideas. Wonder if it's time to make some changes. I don't disagree with much of what the Libertarian Party says and stands for. I think, okay, so yeah, Danny says, be bold, vote gold. It's a cute little slogan. I like it. But is it going to be enough? Are people fed up enough, do you think? I will say this. We didn't have that high of hopes in 2020 with the governor's race, but I was stunned at how well the third party candidate did. I believe it was a record. It was up there. It was up there. Beat the Democrat in many, many locations. I don't know the exact numbers. You can look it up if you're that interested. But Cassie says it wouldn't hurt to put a couple in. Yeah, I'll say this. One thing that's really interesting to me is a couple of the most popular Republicans are people like Massey, who is a Republican, but is very libertarian leaning, right? Okay, so hold on. Paul says 32 counties is how many places. Yeah, Danny says second place in 33 counties. So 32 or 33 counties. Rainwater actually got more votes than the Democrat. That's huge. I don't think people understand how massive that is. That is a huge, huge deal. Is it enough? Is it enough to get some libertarians in this time? I'll tell you this: I don't mind working with them. I think a lot of things are going to be very similar. So Danny says Justin Amash was the first libertarian congressman. Didn't he run as a Republican though, and then he changed to a libertarian? Did he get elected as a libertarian, or did he get elected as a Republican? I'm just curious, because if he got elected as a libertarian, that's very, very impressive. I thought he was a Republican previous to that. I don't know. I don't know that much about him. Yeah, so that's what I thought. Not that it's a yeah, that's what I thought. But I'll say this: I really think the field is right. I think that there are many races that we could see a third party really do quite well. There are many angry people, especially on the left, because there are many people on the left that do not agree with what's considered the current, sort of I'm looking for here, the current party beliefs, right? Defund the police, stuff like that. This super woke ideology. They don't agree with that, but they also don't agree necessarily with some of the Republican values or interests. And let's face it, the media does their thing to make people think things that are untrue. So I think that the third party has some interesting. Well, you know what? That's actually another. Cassie says we almost had Kurt Knisley on our side. I actually had Kurt on the show, and he is a very libertarian-leaning Republican. That's what I was going to say. Is most of the Republicans that are super well known and really popular are very libertarian leaning. So I'm actually surprised that a couple of them haven't actually switched like Justin. But it is what it is, ladies and gentlemen. I love to hear from everybody, left, right, center, libertarian, or Green Party. They're all welcome. And I think we had a great conversation. Excuse me. I will say this, Mr. Sceniak certainly has some great ideas on some stuff, and I'll have to look into the things that he told me about. Hey, as a Republican candidate for office, I can't exactly say too many things other than your vote is your vote. Never ever let a party or a candidate tell you who to vote for. Do your own research, learn about these candidates, and don't feel obligated to vote for anyone, ever. Don't try to play ballot games. Don't try to, this vote doesn't matter. I'm going to waste my vote if I vote for that person. The only wasted vote is a vote not cast. Vote for the person you believe in. If we had more people that actually voted for the people they believe in on an individual basis, we could fundamentally change this country for the better. I wholeheartedly believe that. Cassie asked, can I message you? Absolutely. Message you about RCB. Yeah. I don't mind learning more about it. I'm familiar with it. I would like to see how it could be utilized for our regular ballots. I don't know if the legislature would go for it, but hopefully come January, I'll be in there and we can debate it on the floor and we can get some people on board. I'm not opposed to it. I'd certainly be willing to have the conversations. That's one of the things that's great about America is you can actually have some conversations with people, and you don't have to believe a certain way. You don't, at least for now that the Ministry of Truth is becoming a reality with the under the heading of Homeland Security, right? That is terrifying. We got to stop this, ladies and gentlemen. So without further ado, I'm hungry. I'm going to go get some dinner. Thank you very much for joining me tonight. It was a great interview, in my opinion. Learn more about everybody on your ballot. So thank you very much. God bless you. God bless Indiana. And God bless the United States of America.